Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into Firebase App Hosting and exploring its support for the most important Next.js features in the Pages architecture. I'll test SSG, SSR, ISR, middleware, image optimization, API routes, and more to gauge Firebase App Hosting's compatibility with Next.js. I'll be covering the deployment of my Next.js app, which isolates and automates the testing of the 13 most important Next.js Pages architecture features. So let's jump in and see what this combination offers. Spoiler alert, I don't have any of my personal Next.js apps on Firebase, and I still have no plans to do so. Also, please like this video and subscribe for future updates. It really helps the channel if you can like this video and subscribe. Jumping in, I am not a Firebase expert. I'll cover what I can. And first, it's important to note that Firebase App Hosting is distinct from Firebase Hosting. The two services, despite their similar names, cater to different needs. Firebase Hosting is designed for static or single-page apps, while Firebase App Hosting is tailored for apps with server interaction, such as Next.js or Angular. Also, Firebase App Hosting is currently in preview. I don't know when it will be out of preview, but it's important to remember that I am testing a service that is still in preview. The description of the underlying architecture of Firebase App Hosting does not go into too much detail. If I were to take my Next.js apps to production in Firebase, I'd do more research on the underlying architecture. But the app is built with Cloud Build, served with Cloud Run, and cached with Cloud CDN. So there are plenty of clouds. If you're using any Firebase services now or want to use them in the future, please leave a comment below. Firebase is not a front-of-mind cloud platform for me, so I'm interested in what services you use now and why you like them, or maybe why you don't like them. But right now, let's walk through getting my Next.js app up and running in Firebase. I followed these instructions. The link to them is in the description below. Inside the Firebase console I created by project, I did not set up Google Analytics, and I have my existing Next.js host check app. The steps I'm following offer the options of using the console or the Firebase CLI. Now, for whatever reason, after creating one backend, you can no longer use the console. So I had to install the CLI. I wanted to avoid that as I don't see myself using Firebase much or ever after this video. And it was also funny because Windows Defender actually didn't trust the Firebase CLI installer. Being the adventurous type, I ignored the warnings, but still, Google, you should look into that. I'm not sure why your installer is not accepted by Windows Defender. That's kind of worrisome. Following the documentation steps to log in and attach my GitHub repo were pretty simple. I ran the command to create my app hosting backend, and I'm not a fan of calling this my backend. This command starts the build process and generates the static pages and routes, and while it does set up the SSR and API routes that you could consider the backend, the term backend wouldn't be my first choice. This command is doing a full deployment of my Next.js application, not just the backend. Also, maybe I'm getting picky here, but the command requires the project ID as an argument, but gives you no guidance on where to find that project ID. If you go and click on the cog next to the project overview inside the console, head over to project settings, you'll find your project ID. So it isn't that hard to find, but I wish they told me where I could have found it. After letting that run, my application was deployed. It took a few minutes, but I was able to refresh inside of the Firebase console and wait and see until my application was deployed. Inside the app hosting screen, I found the URL for my deployed application, and I've got my Next.js app running in Firebase. You might notice the failed deployment here on the page as well. That was the Next.js 14 version of my app. I actually had to downgrade to Next.js 13 to get my app to even deploy. I wasn't sure of the exact error that caused 14 to break because the logs were difficult to interpret. You can access the full logs, but they did not take me to the error, and I scrolled around for a bit. It loads the logs a section at a time rather than having full access. I probably could have downloaded them to have full access, but I didn't really care that much at the time. So I never actually found the exact error, and I just assumed that Next.js 14 was the issue. So I downgraded to 13, redeployed, and things started working. So right now, Firebase does not have support for Next.js 14 in the Pages architecture. But we have a Next.js 13 version of the Next.js host check app deployed to Firebase App Hosting. So it's time to run the Cypress tests and see how well Firebase supports the most important Next.js features in the Pages architecture. So I've got my Cypress console open. I'll jump into that, and I'm going to run my 13 specs, so it's going to test those most important features for us. I'll come back when these tests are done, and we can take a peek at how they did. All right, so the tests are done, and what we're seeing are, it's showing 3 failures, but incremental static regeneration support, I actually tested that manually while you weren't looking, and it was working. So I'm not, my test, I know I've said this before in previous videos, I'm not testing ISR very well. I think it has something to do with if you're visiting the pages, because if someone else visits the page or if something else happens on that page to trigger a rebuild in the middle, it can cause different issues. So I still need to fix that test. But right now I'm testing manually, and that's just fine for me. So ISR is working, but we can verify that image optimization is not working. When we are, I'll just visit the page directly. If we go back to here and check out image optimization, we can see that our original size is 154 and the optimized size is 154. So we are not getting an optimized version, even if you're using the next image. Same with the JSS image optimization, 87 is the original, 87 is the optimized. So we are not seeing optimizations happen inside of Firebase App Hosting. And now, for me, this is kind of a deal breaker because other services offer the image hosting, image optimization built in, and image optimization is super important to your Google page speeds. They're often the largest contentful paint of our pages. We want to reduce that largest contentful paint, and Next.js generally makes that very easy for us with that next image component and having the automatic optimization to proper web formats, as well as optimized sizes. So there are plenty of other services that you can connect in here with Firebase that can do either open source optimizations on the side or connect it to other services that will do image optimization for you. But for me personally, that's a reason why I wouldn't be using Firebase App Hosting, because I like it being built in. I don't want to add on another service to fix the service I'm using. But otherwise, Next.js feature support, we saw great support. I'll put up on the screen right now all the features that I tested and how they're supported. Everything else I saw supported other than the image optimization and, well, that Next.js 14 version that I tried to use before. Couldn't even deploy it, but I didn't really debug too far into it. But we are seeing some decent feature support here for Firebase App Hosting. While still in preview, I'm actually pretty surprised and excited about the results. You're not going to see me moving all my applications over to Firebase right now, especially with it being in preview. That's just not something I want to be using, testing out preview for production applications. But it's a service that I'm going to keep my eye on. Once they're out of preview, I'd like to test again and see if anything changes. If you found this video useful, please leave it a like. Please subscribe so you can keep up with future videos. But with that, thanks for watching.